Hello, my loves. Welcome to Tapped In with me, Sophie French, this tapping series to help you get into your body, clear your fears, clear your limiting beliefs, move through emotions, clear through anything that is needed. Today we are tapping on loneliness. And I said in my last video that we were doing grief and loneliness. That wasn't true. It was grief and loss. This one is specifically around loneliness, and around this time of year, but also any time, loneliness is a big part of the human experience, right? We're connected to all these people in the world, and yet sometimes we can still feel really lonely, whether we're alone, whether we're, on our own at home, for example, or when we are even out in a crowded room or at a festival. This feeling of loneliness is ours, and it is universal, and it is rarely actually dependent on circumstance. It is something that lives within us, and it is a core basic human emotional need to have love, to feel love and belonging and connection. And when we don't feel that, that can be love and belonging and connection and safety in ourselves as well as with other people. Often when we can feel it more in ourselves, we can feel it more with others. But there's a fine balance, and naturally we are wired for connection and to be in connection with others. We're also on our own paths and our own journeys and our own souls who are here as one. And while we are all one with everyone else and in connection, we're also at one with ourselves. It is us that we're the only people that know the inner workings of our own mind, of our own inner world, of our thoughts, of our feelings, of what we've experienced and been through. And ultimately in that can be a loneliness, because there is no one else in this world that can possibly understand you fully and truly other than you. You are that person, and that can feel scary, the sense of that, and that can feel lonely. And so, as I mentioned, loneliness is rarely dependent on circumstance, because we know when we've had the feeling where we're in a room full of other people and still feel lonely, or when we've spent time on our own or in nature or with a pet and feel so full and so not lonely, whatever the opposite of that, belonging, I guess. And so it's really important to say this and speak this as we move through, because particularly at this time of year, we can think that our loneliness stems from not being with certain people, or being with people and thinking we should be feeling a certain way, or thinking that we should be connected, or not being with people and feeling sad around that. And essentially it's all a feeling. And so we want to work with this feeling to know that it's safe and normal to feel lonely as a human in this world sometimes. That feels really important to share, because often when we feel a sense of loneliness, whether with other people or with ourselves, there can also come with that this feeling of, is there something wrong with me? Is there, I'm trying to be in connection with this person, but I don't feel connected. I actually feel lonely. And so actually being with that feeling and noticing where that lives within you and how you can tend to it and soothe that feeling with or without others. Because even when we're with other people, we want to be able to then feel open enough to actually be in connection with them, to not feel so lonely because we're around others. When we're with ourselves, we want to be able to have that sense of not feeling that loneliness, feeling more connected to ourselves, to something greater, is a beautiful way. And moving through the natural feelings of loneliness that can show up at any time in our lives, but particularly around this time of year, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of other people that we can perhaps be comparing ourselves to. There's a lot of visuals of it looking like lots of people are together and in love and belonging. And that can heighten the feeling of loneliness, but that feeling is often already existent within us, and it's not dependent on circumstance. It just happens to be heightened around this time of year. So, really noticing how that lands in your body and getting ready to tap with that. The intention being to be with this feeling, to allow it to process, to allow yourself to move through this feeling, to not attach to it, but rather to transmute it, to shift it into love or self-love or belonging, or simply to be present with it, to allow it and to not feel so afraid of it. Because being afraid of our own loneliness can often be driving our behavior, and it drives us to do things that we don't actually want to do. It's often what keeps us in relationships we don't want to be in. It often keeps us in places that we don't want to be in, perpetuating patterns that we don't want to have. Loneliness is a big driver of these unconscious behaviors that we do when we're like, why am I spending time with this person when I actually don't feel good afterwards? Well, if loneliness is driving the show, that need is getting met in that connection more so than the need to feel good. So it helps us to understand, and when we can be with this loneliness, we're not running away from it by keeping busy or perpetually doing all the things, we can actually come back into a state of relaxation, a state of self-soothing, a state of self-compassion, and it helps us make better choices. It helps us make more conscious choices. It helps us make choices that are more true for us, rather than being driven by this avoidance of feeling lonely. So yeah, really seeing what we're going to see what comes through today. And I often work with people in sessions often ask me, like, how did you do that? How did you know that? This is something that, having trained in NLP for years and years, it's a sense, and listening to my intuition and what comes through and what needs to be spoken is a way that I move through this as well, is a way that I support people in knowing what needs to be spoken and knowing what's alive. So we're open to what comes through today on loneliness. So when you are ready, start tapping on the side of the hand on your karate chop point. And starting to take a deep breath in through your nose. And out through your mouth. And another deep breath in through your nose. And out through your mouth. All right, and tuning in with your body, tuning in with what's alive, tuning in where does loneliness live for you? Where does loneliness exist in your body? Perhaps it lights up the stomach, perhaps it's a sense you have there, perhaps it's in your heart, perhaps it's a thought or something on your mind, the story you tell yourself about loneliness. Just allowing yourself to feel what's present and to label it on a scale of 0 to 10. Just for yourself to know and to be aware of what's happening in your body right now. And to be able to notice what shifts, to be able to measure that. Okay. So repeating after me. Even though I feel all of this loneliness, I deeply love and accept myself anyway. I am feeling so lonely. And I deeply love and accept myself anyway. Sometimes I wonder if something is wrong with me. Because I like to spend so much time alone. But I also feel lonely. And I deeply and completely love and accept myself anyway. All this loneliness. Feeling so lonely. I'm asking questions like, what's wrong with me? Where do I belong? And sometimes it feels so scary. But there's a little part of me, a younger version, that is simply asking to feel safe. This part is feeling unsafe. It knows its need to be in connection. Connection with self and other people. And sometimes it has found it hard to connect. Perhaps a part of me has felt this for a long time. A feeling of wanting to connect, but finding it really hard. Sometimes connection has not been safe. Sometimes connection has meant abandoning myself. And so it often feels safer to be alone. It often feels safer to spend time by myself. And that's okay. But sometimes it gets lonely. Sometimes it feels hard. Sometimes it feels scary. Sometimes I look at other people and wonder, have they got something figured out that I don't? I wonder if other people feel this way. And sometimes it makes me feel even more lonely. Because it doesn't look like other people do. But a lot of people would probably think that about me too. Some people might not know that I feel lonely sometimes. Some people might say, oh, but you have this and you have that and you're with this. But they don't understand. That there have been lots of times where I've needed to take care of myself. And I might have learned a long time ago that it was safest for me to be alone. To not let anybody else in. Because then they won't hurt me. Then they won't let me down. Then they won't disappoint me. But that also gets kind of lonely. Because I do want to feel connected to people. Not all the time, but sometimes. I'd like to feel safer. I'd like to feel more of a sense of belonging. I'd like to feel more of a sense of love. I'd like to feel more of a sense of safety. And I can invite myself to feel that right now. Calling in a sense of safety. I am safe. I am loved. I belong. I am safe. I am loved. I belong. I am safe. I am valuable. I am worthy. I am loved. And I belong. All this loneliness, I can turn it into love and compassion for myself. All this loneliness. I'm allowing it to be present and alive and welcome. And I'm sending it off into the ethers to make space for more love. Remembering that I am blessed. Remembering what I am grateful for. Remembering what I do feel connected to. And sometimes all of that love feels even scarier than loneliness. Because we can be scared to lose it. But I can't lose love. Because I am love. I can't lose love because I am love. I am loved. I am safe. And I belong. And I belong to myself first and foremost. I am safe here. Okay, rubbing your hands together. Taking a deep breath in through your nose. And out through your mouth. Continuing to rub your hands together, building that energy in through your nose. And out through your mouth. Okay, placing your hand on your heart, on your womb space. Noticing the heat and energy that you've drained out of your body through this release process, and that you've generated through rubbing them together, filling yourself up with love, releasing loneliness. Just resting into that feeling, noticing how that feels in your body, noticing what's shifted, what's changed, whether you yawned a lot and relaxed, whether you had any emotions that came up, noticing where any of that sense of loneliness has shifted on a scale of 0 to 10. Maybe there's more clearing that you feel you need to do, in which case go back and do it all over again. Just keep clearing. The beauty of tapping is that we're constantly clearing our energy, clearing our memories, clearing our subconscious mind. Tapping helps us to bypass the conscious mind and get into the subconscious. So it's a really beautiful practice to be moving through all that needs to be moved through constantly. There's so much in our subconscious that we just get to be with it and be present with it and open the valves to release any kinks in the hose. That is essentially what tapping helps us to do. And I'd absolutely love to know how this lands, how you feel, what came up for you, what shifted. Please do share below. Also, you can subscribe here, wherever that button is. And I'm going to be sharing lots more in terms of tapping and moving through all the things that you need to. If you would like to learn more about tapping, I have a Tapped In mini course, which is a 10-day self-paced self-study course where you can learn more about tapping, about connecting with yourself, using tapping to clear through your limiting beliefs in your mind, grief, loneliness, fears that are on your heart, walls around your heart, where you can tap back into your soul, your spirit, your intuition, your inner knowing, the wisdom of your body. So you can get that below too. I will pop the link there. If you have any questions or anything you want to share, please do. And I am sending you lots of love, and I will speak to you really soon. Mwah.